Hi, everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of the CoCo Show. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to be talking about Poltergeist and Sailor Man.
An eclectic blend of games, both.
Absolutely. Before we dive into those games, Aaron, since this is our first proper episode, do you want to give us a little rundown of exactly what this machine is?
Sure. We thought just in case we had some new listeners in here that weren't familiar with the CoCo or the Dragon, just the briefest of summaries of what they are, because we're not going to get into the hardware and stuff, but we're here to play some games, man. Because there are other people that do a better job with that stuff than us. We're
Absolutely.
just a couple dumb guys. So, and I like to do this to Brent on ARG, so I'm going to do it to you. So the CoCo, the original car computer that came out in back in the day, had a retail price. I'm looking at it here, Bo. Do you want to take a wild guess as to what the CoCo 1 was selling for? Now, this would have been right around 81.
81?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to say $4.99.
That's not bad. You're way better than the Brent. $3.99.
Okay.
Around $1,250 bill back in the day. Now, the CoCo came in several different flavors. You've got your CoCo 1, and when I say CoCo, which you're going to use this term a lot, the official name of this particular computer is the TRS-80. That's TRS-80.
Mm-hmm.
It's a color computer, and then we just short it to CoCo. Everyone that has a CoCo says CoCo.
So on there was no actual branding on the computer that said CoCo.
No,
it was always color computer.
No.
Okay.
It was never referred to in-house as CoCo.
Okay.
The color computer was put out by Tandy, and in Radio Shack is where you could buy these things. Now, if you are interested in the Dragon 32 or Dragon 64, they're basically the same computer they basically used off-the-shelf parts basically to make the same computer over in the UK. If you're really interested in more of a deeper look at it, we did a ARG Presents on the Dragon a while back, so I'd shoot you over there to check that out. And we're going to use the Dragon and the CoCo sort of intermittently. We're going to play games from both machines. Because a lot of the Dragon games I didn't even get to see over here, so it'll be a lot of fun to try them out. Anyway, the Color Computer 1 ran from about 1980, 81-ish to about 1983. The original version was a 4K unit, boat. And this thing, I've got buddies that had these. I didn't have one of these, but it was in a silver case originally, and they were real funky looking keyboard.
Was this like a PC Junior type keyboard?
No, it's been since I pulled the PC. It's more like it's sort of like kind of like chiclets, sort of, but it was an unusual, not that great keyboard. Mm-hmm. In fact, they had keyboard replacements for it. My buddy has one of these original CoCos, and he put a reset switch on and a power light. He did a bunch of mods to it. That's the Chud, by the way, in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
This thing, like I said, it came with 4K. But you could actually, apparently, you could expand this thing up to 32K. Now, and also you could actually get a more advanced basic. And the Color Computer 1 and the Color Computer 2 had RF out, as their videos. So that's something to keep in mind. Color Computer 2, the CoCo 2, came out in around 83, 84, and it ran for a few years. These came out in a 16K or a 64K model. Now, this is the first CoCo I ever had. We had a 64K version of the CoCo 2. It had what's called like a melted keyboard, which is it's an unusual keyboard. It's like if you took a normal keyboard and just cut all the keys in half and sort of laid them down on this black background, you would get this kind of keyboard. It was a good keyboard, to be honest with you.
None of the CoCos had the old Atari 400 special.
These
were all
membrane.
Usable.
Yeah, there was no membrane keyboards. Okay, then you had, and again, this was 64K, and again, you had RF out. Then you had the CoCo 3 that came out in 86, and it ran up right up to the end. This thing came out with 128K, and you could pretty easily go to 512 on this thing. And this was your more advanced CoCo, and a lot of people compare the CoCo 3 to like the Amiga. That's probably stretching it a little, to be honest with you.
A little.
But you got to think this thing came out right about the same time.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, no, they have some similarities to the Amiga, but it's, I mean, and really, I don't think the CoCo 3 was around long enough to be fully explored like the Amiga was. The Amiga or the CoCo 3 ran until about 90, and eventually Ed Judge of the Tandy Corporation announced that they would drop the Tandy CoCo 3.
I missed that. What year was that?
This was 1990, October.
So, in fact, they did have enough time to fully explore the.
Well,
CoCo
no, it was
3.
only I mean, think about it. The CoCo 3 was only around like 3-4 years tops. The Amiga's been around for like 10 years.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we're not talking about the Mattel Aquarius here. What was
No,
on the market
no,
for 8
no,
months. That's
no.
what I was thinking.
But I mean, it was
originally.
exported a lot more than that.
Sure, yeah,
I mean, good
yeah,
Lord,
yeah.
that's not, we're never going to compare those two things again. I mean, and you had the CoCo 3, you had an OS 9, so it was a much more advanced. I remember the main thing that I liked about it was that you could type in lowercase. That was a pretty big deal.
When that's a big deal, then you know that the CoCo 2 and the CoCo 1, I mean, you could get stuff, though, that could allow you to type in lowercase, right? You could kind of fool the system.
Well, when I had my CoCo 2, I used to write, I think I mentioned this, I used to write my school papers on it. Mm-hmm. And I was the only kid in school that had a printer and a computer that could do this, and I had all these crazy fonts. And you can imagine the fonts you could get. They're like Old English and stuff.
And when you're a kid, you're not thinking about, maybe this is hard to read. You're thinking, this looks awesome.
And my teachers were like, whoa!
Yeah.
They couldn't believe it when I turned these, type
Oh, yeah.
But I used an old terminal program that would let you do lowercase to type them out. And I had a Tandy dot matrix printer. As I mentioned, they had Tandy made the printers. They made the modems. They made expansion items. There's an expansion cartridge expansion system that plugs into the cartridge port on the Tandy that gives you extra cartridge slots, basically. So you could put disk drive controllers and sound packs and still play your games. So there were peripherals as you would expect. It was actually a pretty popular and a pretty big deal back in the day. And one more thing I want to touch on before we leave the hardware section are the Tandy joysticks. They really had two varieties of Tandy-made joysticks. They had a model that were these little black sticks that have one red button on the top. Mm-hmm. They're analog sticks. They're not self-centering sticks, and they're an acquired taste.
Would you compare these to the 5200 stick?
No, these are better than that because these work and don't instantly deteriorate. Those were the dirt worst because you can't keep them working.
Right.
These are far simpler. It's
they're
literally
just,
a button,
not self-centering.
but and they're limp. Mm-hmm. But I mean, and they're real thin. But you sort of get used to them. I've got a couple
probably not
of them.
unlike the old Kraft PC joysticks, right?
They're more. They're not like them, but they're similarly sized stick.
Okay.
Then they had the CoCo also had Tandy had a deluxe stick, and the deluxe stick self-centered, and you could turn the self-centering off. That was a great stick, and they're expensive. I'd like to have one, but I had one back in my younger days. I don't have one now. So going forward, what I've been using, I got a couple adapters that let me use just plain Jane Atari style joysticks on mine. So I've got my Wiccos hooked up to it, or my Epix sticks that you love so much. So that's what I'm going to be playing on. But I'm using for the duration of this show, I've got a Color Computer 3 with 128K and a CoCo SD expansion that lets me use SD cards in the cartridge slot. So that's what I'm going to be using.
You've got a pretty kitted out CoCo 3.
Well, I mean, people that are really into it have some real crazy systems. The fellow in the chat room just said he had like 8 megs of RAM in his CoCo 3. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
I don't know what you would do with it. And I've talked to the guys on Facebook about how much RAM you should get. Mm-hmm. And from what I've been able to ascertain, that because you can go up to 512 pretty easily and pretty cheaply, but there's not much out there currently that uses 512, but I guess there's stuff in the pipeline, believe it or not.
I see.
The CoCo still has a very active community, and they're super nice guys. They're super helpful. Very friendly bunch. They're one of the friendlier communities I've gotten into, so I really like them. So there you go. There's your hardware moment, but we probably won't be going down that road again.
Okay, well, before we get into Poltergeist, Aaron, I want to ask you a couple questions because you are sort of a connoisseur of the supernatural. Yeah. Okay. A poltergeist is a particular kind of ghost, right?
It is as I recall, poltergeist is German for mischievous spirit. I believe is the translation, and they are generally poltergeists were considered harmless annoyances. Mm-hmm. But you know,
you can't make a movie about a harmless.
No, you can't. And Poltergeist is a sort of a foreboding sounding name. It's like, oh crap.
Yeah, it is.
Now you've never seen the film, have you?
Oh gosh, no. I'd be terrified.
I love this movie. I'll be honest with you. And
well, I'll tell you that whenever I would go and peruse Video Vault over there by the middle school, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I would see it and I would look at because I would always be curious to look at the tapes. And Poltergeist is only rated PG.
That PG-13. That's what,
I think that they went back and changed it later on when they,
This was one of the movies that really. This is an R movie, in my opinion. Uh-huh. I would not show this to my 13-year-old. I remember watching this. The first time I ever saw this was in the band room at middle school, 6th grade.
Wow. Simmons, doing it right.
And this came out. I didn't realize how old this movie was, for starters. I did a little write-up on it here. So this came out in 82. That's a long time. I swear to you, it doesn't seem like that long.
So it was a new movie when you saw it in 6th grade.
Yeah. Well, we had it on videotape, and back then having movies on videotape was no easy. Sometimes they didn't come out for years, you know. And this was a Spielberg movie, but he couldn't direct it because he was doing E.T. And so he brought in another guy, the same guy that did Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh my gosh!
Now, have you ever seen that? I'm guessing you didn't see that either. That movie is disturbing.
I will never see that.
But there's I've always heard rumors that like Spielberg sort of directed this, and maybe couldn't officially do it. But this is basically the tale of a family that gets terrorized by poltergeist, and the whole gimmick of it is I'm going to spoil this 30-year-old movie or whatever 40-year movie. Their whole housing development they move into was built on an Indian burial ground.
That old shtick.
You don't ever do that.
No.
And their pool right on top of a bunch of graves.
Yeah, it's no good.
And so guess what? You're a ghost. They build this crap on your house. You're not happy. You got a bunch of geeks in the house.
Yeah.
And so what do you do, a bunch of geeks? You terrorize the crap out of them.
Yeah, you do.
It starts small, but this movie really ramps up the freak out factor when Carol Ann, the little girl, sits in front of the TV all the time and she's talking to the static. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't remember a time where you had static on the TV and not a blue screen. And it was sort of creepy. And you would hear signals come through it. And so they took that fear and they turned it up to 11, and it was creepy as heck. Mm-hmm. And the commercials for this movie were just creepy with that little girl going, "They're here," in front of the TV and all the static. I'm getting
a little freaked out just listening to you.
It was creepy. And I will say, and not to get in the movie too much, but the ending of this movie, one of the all-time great endings in any movie ever.
Just let me know, is there a happy ending?
Ish. At the end, the family have retreated to a hotel room, and the very last thing you see in the movie is them throwing the TV out. It's glorious. I always thought that was such a great stinger to the end of the movie. I recommend you watch this movie if you haven't. It was really, really, really good movie. But yes, it did push the rating system to the limit, Bo. That's for sure. So you need to watch it.
Okay.
That'd be good. I mean, it's sort of, you need to watch it.
I'll never watch it.
I know you won't. Dadgummit. It sucks. So let's talk about the game.
Okay.
Poltergeist. Now, this game got released in 82, 83, right in that area there. And this came out on cartridge. And this is one of those games I remember seeing a lot. It was a Radio Shack. Picture going into an old 80s Radio Shack, right? Okay. You've got all your radio parts. You've got all your CB stuff, batteries. Everybody was in a battery club, so picture that scene. And then they had an area back there devoted to CoCo cartridges and tapes. And so you would see all these cartridges. And I remember seeing this one because it had a cool picture from the movie on it. And it was a movie license. And CoCo wasn't what I would call a license heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's expensive to license games.
And this is actually the only game of this type that was released. For Poltergeist, this is it. So it's pretty wacky. In this game, you're basically tasked with trying to save Carol Ann from the poltergeist. Mm-hmm. And what you've basically got here are 3 separate mini games. Yeah. Now, the first game, the funny thing about the first game is it really has nothing to do with the poltergeist, the danger. This city was put together by some sadist, and everyone that drives in this city is in a madman, because what you have to do is traverse this map. It's an overhead map of I guess their subdivision. Mm-hmm. And you're going around to collect various items you need to expunge the poltergeist from the house. And if you watch the movie, these items will have meaning to you. There's towels and rope and a ribbon and tennis balls. I don't know if this means nothing to you, but
No.
in the movie it makes sense.
Why did they need tennis balls?
They threw these things into this void, and they would come back out. It's just stuff that was there's a loose tie, but they're in the movie. And so what you have to do is these little marks will appear on these houses. You have to run to them to retrieve that item. Okay, and you're on a timer, of course. And so that's not too bad. But what you've got to worry about is everyone on Earth decided to go driving, and they drive like crazy maniacs on this grid pattern housing development. So you'll get run over and over. Plus, you have to contend with this sort of engine noise that is a bit grating.
It's not easy on the ears.
Yeah, of course, coming off a lot of Spectrum games, this sounded like an orchestra compared to that. Now, the funny thing about this boat, did you know about this? I'm sure you know about the secret hidden trick on this level.
Yeah, so if you hold your fire button down when the level starts, you can prevent the traffic from coming out. But to me, I mean, why bother? Because, I mean, if you're playing the game, play the game. You know, dodge the traffic. It's not that bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it gets tough, and and you can easily get ran down. Yeah. That's my point. Yeah. So once you complete your items list, basically, and again, you are timed, you graduate to the second level. And it's funny, this second level, I remember as a kid, I couldn't get past this level to save my life.
Really?
I thought it was the hardest thing. And I haven't played this game for many years. So this week when I picked it up, I got past the car level. I got to that second level. I'm like, oh, here we go. Man, first attempt. I was right up the stairs. I was like, what was wrong with me? So basically you're looking at the bottom. You're at the bottom of a staircase, and you're basically a pair of feet, footprints. And what you've got to do is navigate your footprints up the stairs.
You're sort of like playing Frogger.
It's sort of like Frogger. If the road's got narrower on the other side.
Yeah, and you've got enemies, or you've got assailants that behave erratically, like the ghost face.
Yeah, and they're kind of black squares that move around, and so
it's challenging. I mean, it's definitely more difficult than the first couple levels of Frogger.
I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, now that I play it again, when I was a kid, I'm telling you, I couldn't get past this thing to save my life.
Remember, you were using that joystick too.
That's true. That's true. And I will say, I was using a much better stick. And I wish I'd had normally I like to play these machines with their original stuff, but the joysticks I've got for this thing, are the black ones, are real beat up.
Yeah.
And so I went down to the Atari route. And if I'd had these as a kid, and they did exist because my buddy had them for his, I would have had them in a heartbeat if I'd known they were around. So anyway, once you get past the staircase level, then you're into the main event of this game. And the main event of the game is you're trying to rescue and keep Carol Ann out of the void where the demons are. And so what you're treated to here is a very unusual, it's hard to explain what you're seeing. It's like a picture like looking down a hall as lights shoot all around you.
It's almost like you're going into warp drive.
It is. Yeah. And there's a face that comes out, and you're basically trying to whack it. The one thing about this game is I'm not sure I've ever successfully gotten past the third level. I tried repeatedly. Then I went to watch some playthroughs to see what happened. Because what happens is once you get tagged on this, you just basically start over, and you go back to the auto level. I found the last level cool looking, given the parameters of the machine, but infuriating. But
I couldn't beat it either.
I found it I like what they did. I mean, I think they took some good chances. In 82, to have a game that had multiple levels in it was pretty unusual on the CoCo, and then to have that particular level be so graphically interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, but it was just so freaking weird.
Yeah,
and hard.
I mean, 82 is we're really early on here in home computers in 82, and so I think that later on, 83, 84, 85, this type of game became more common. For example, if you think about the Death Star battle that came out for a lot of the computers, you had two different stages. It was like that, of course, Gorf and all its types of things.
The funny thing with that third level is, okay, so you're trying to shoot this poltergeist, right? But what happens is occasionally the Carol Ann will be there, and you can shoot her effectively. And you can't, that means you're done. And so I think that's generally what happens is when you just starts over. This level is really difficult. And I mean, I tried and tried. I must have played this game 50 times this week, and I never quite got the hang of it. I went through it over and over.
Don't get me wrong. This level, the stair level, is no picnic. I mean, I've beaten it, but I've also died a whole bunch on this level too.
Yeah.
So.
But Bo, you're early into your CoCo exposure. What did you think about this thing out of the gate?
I thought that this was a quality title. I mean, this was a good game to start out with because it showed off some of the capabilities of the machine. I mean, I thought that on the whole, the game, the first mini game, it's very simple. But it was fun. It reminded me of the E.T. Phone Home game on the Atari 8-bits, because you're also wandering around a city.
It does look like
parts.
Okay. Yeah, I have played that.
Yeah.
I can see where you're coming from. It's nothing like that.
No, but the setting is similar. This is also my intro to the normal CoCo color scheme, with a lot of blues and oranges and things.
It's almost like a CGA-ish, but I mean you can get in that. There's way more like greens. I mean it is an unusual palette.
Yeah.
That you're gonna find yourself exposed to, especially for something that's built as a color computer. There was color, but it wasn't like a rainbow of colors generally.
Right. Absolutely. I thought that the second level was great. The third level I couldn't beat. So I mean, I can't give this game too glowing a review because I couldn't get past that third level, even the first loop, because I imagine that the game gets harder on subsequent loops.
Well, I mean, you keep going. It does.
Yeah.
I like to cheat on the first level, because otherwise
you're just wasting your time.
That's a glaring screw up, by the way, to let that go through your error, your bug folks. Now, what did you think in between the levels and at the beginning of the levels? There's some flavor text. What did you think? Was it too jarring for you because the CoCo? We mentioned this earlier. The CoCo basically, you got one text and this is what it looks like, and you're going to take it. And so the levels that have text are sort of miscolored. The text just appears in a very ugly, hideous way.
Yeah, and one thing I thought was, boy, if I was reading this off a CRT with an RF output, could I even read that at all?
Actually, that's one place that actually helped.
Really?
Because it's all big, bold lettering.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's. But I mean, that's you'll notice that in a lot of games going forward is like there's no unless someone programmed in a graphic for the text, you're going to get that kind of blocky, tandy text on this. I found 0 reviews for this game. I found a couple user reviews, but they were mostly garbage. I did look on eBay to see how this thing was going. It's funny because I remember this cartridge was probably one of the, and this is just a guess, but I saw it everywhere. It's got to be one of the most produced Tandy cartridges. I couldn't find any numbers on how many it sold or how many they produced, but I mean, it was one I saw everywhere, back in the day. I saw one on sale on eBay for $12, or one had sold for $12. I had a couple guys were looking for $20 all the way up to $60 for it. The funny thing about CoCo games, we should probably talk about this before we move on. A lot of the CoCo games that came from Radio Shack, the cartridges, the boxes sucked, and because the box is effectively a square box with a window in the front that shows you the front of the cartridge.
Really? Wow.
So now I can't say that with 100%, but the majority of them like that. And so the boxes are all, I think to a certain degree, were almost interchangeable for some of the stuff.
So nobody kept these things, right?
Well,
into the garbage right away.
I haven't early in our run. I've not priced a lot of cartridges. I was thinking on the way up here. I don't think my family ever bought a single cartridge. I can't think of owning a single one. If you don't count the speech pack and the disk drive interface, I don't think we ever bought a single cartridge. I was on tape right out of the gate.
Yeah.
So but I remember seeing these things, and you go window shopping, and something else I remember is seeing the same. It's funny, the CoCo had a large selection of games, but you saw at Radio Shack they didn't have that many, and so you saw the same ones over and over. And when a new game showed up at the Radio Shack, this was like a big deal. You're like, holy mackerel! I can actually see something different for a change. And then when they had it, a lot of times they'd have a CoCo fired up there and you could actually play it, the new ones. But I mean, that's how rare they were. It was extremely rare.
Now, there were several Radio Shacks around where we live. Was there one Radio Shack that was really the place to go, or did they all have a similar selection?
It's funny. We're one of the few places that actually still have a functioning Radio Shack. It's the same one that was a big deal back then. It's in Dunbar, right about 15 minutes from here.
Yeah.
That was the one that was probably the big one that we used to go to a lot. It was been there for a long time. Also, there was one at St. Albans Mall that was popular, and one at the Huntington Mall as well. So, yeah, Radio Shack back in the day, they were everywhere.
Yeah.
In fact, we had one 5 miles from the house before.
They all stocked CoCo stuff.
Yeah, all Radio Shacks I ever went to had CoCo computer stuff in them. Yeah. So, yeah, but Poltergeist, I think it's a fun game. The third level looks awesome. I think you could almost had a game based strictly around this play mechanic and just done a better job. I think they shot for the stars and they, halfway there, somewhere in the middle.
Let's talk about Sailor Man, Aaron.
Now, when I first pitched CoCo to you, this is one of the games I was like, listen, you got to try this, because it's an outstanding game. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to throw my cards on the table here. I'm a big fan of this particular title. And so when Boat's like, what should we do for our first show since we have no one picking the games for us? I was like, let's do a couple of diverse titles. And this is the first one I picked, which was Sailor Man. Now, this title is sort of, if you were in the CoCo scene back in the day, this is sort of one of your top tier titles. Everyone knows about it. The author of this was a fellow named Chris Latham. He also did a great version of Donkey Kong called Donkey King, which was another great one. I'm sure we'll cross swords with that somewhere down the line. And he did this for an outfit called Tom Mix Software. Tom Mix Software was a prolific CoCo publisher. I think they did some stuff for other machines, but I know I saw tons of stuff for CoCo. I looked high and low, and this is going to be an ongoing investigation to find some stuff out on these guys. I found very little information on them, and their name turns up again and again, but I don't know much about Tom Mix. So, what is Sailor Man? Well, Sailor Man is a clone of Popeye, the arcade version from Nintendo. I know you're a big fan of that game, and so am I.
Well,
you're not.
No.
Really?
I don't like Popeye.
I'm surprised. I'm looking at it. You've got it on your wall over there.
Yeah, I've got a box copy for the Nintendo, but I just no.
Now, get this, Boatster. The original version of Popeye got ported to a bunch of crazy systems. The ones you would expect are the C64, the NES, ColecoVisions, Ataris, all that stuff. The one that always strikes me as funny is the Odyssey 2. And we've actually played that version.
Was that a Brazil-only release?
It was something. It was playable, and it was recognizable, but that's pretty much the extent of it. And Popeye home ports were a mixed bag back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
You would get often they just had the first level, and they were. You're dealing with some rudimentary machines.
Oh yeah, and I mean, to me, one of the reasons why I don't think Popeye is very good is that most of the enjoyment that comes from Popeye comes from the fact that the sprites are so big and lifelike and look like the cartoon.
Exactly, yeah. And so it does. They do. I mean, this game loses a lot in translation most of the time, and so. You can imagine, here's young Aaron, I'm looking, and I've got listen, clone games, as you'll discover as we go through this show, are nothing new in the CoCo. That's pretty much all we had, because there were very few licensed arcade releases. I mean, I can think of a couple. Zaxxon comes to mind. It got an official release, but there weren't a ton. And so here comes this game, and I literally could not believe what I was playing when this thing fired out.
Yeah.
I mean, drop dead, gorgeous. If you skip out on the fact that the colors are, you only have 4 colors or so. The rest of it is, they did a great job.
So good, so good.
We mentioned this was done by Chris Latham. Now, this was the very first commercial game ever released on the CoCo that required 64K.
Was this a commercial release?
Yeah, Tom Mix released this. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So this was for sale?
For sale. And one thing you're going to learn is that there are no scruples in the CoCo. And of course, you should learn that from the Spectrum.
Oh, yeah.
But, they were more than happy to release exact ringers, if you can get away with it. What are you going to go after? Is Nintendo going to go after Tom Mix?
Right.
Give me a break. They don't know who that is.
Especially at this time when Nintendo was not what they are now.
Now, This game, aside from the fact it's a great game, it's one of the all-time great magazine ads from back in the day. I remember I used to get Rainbow Magazine all the time, which is a great mag for the TRS-80. And when this ad first came out, it was something to the effect of you are as the sailor man, and you are trying to rescue your damsel Elsie, and in this game. And to do that, you have to get past. You've got to get past the bad guy. And to get past him, you have to get your collard greens, marked S for collard greens.
Does Elsie need an endless supply of love?
She does not. The bad guy in this is called Big Fat Bad Guy, and the lady playing the sea hag is ugly. Old ugly sea woman.
Oh.
And she doesn't throw bottles, she chucks empties.
Creative.
I love that. To this day, me and my friend Hose have used chucking empties. Oh, such a great way to phrase something.
That is great.
Chucking empties. So, if you play the arcade version of this game, you're going to be right at home. This is a multi-platform game with 3 levels where you play the sailor man as you try to collect, in the first level, you try to collect Olive's hearts as she's thrown out her love. This is like the Sinclair game. You have to go get her love.
Right.
And if her love lays around too long, you die.
Disappears.
Yeah, it's because she throws her hearts down, and they float down through 3 levels, really 4 levels, and into the water, the ocean, because I guess you're at the dock, because you're a sailor man.
That's right.
And you've got to get your heart, retrieve the heart before it sits in the water too long, otherwise you lose a man. As you go through this level, the big fat bad guy is on your tail. He roams the level in pursuit of the sailor man, and you can't do anything to him until you eat your collard greens, marked S for collard greens. The one time that appears, you can go over and bonk him, and you knock him hither and yon across the play field, and he falls in the water. The other option you have for dispatching him is to knock a barrel that's suspended over the middle of the playing field. If you hit a punching bag, the barrel comes down, you can drop it on his head.
Yeah, again, this is another thing that is, it's such a random, I mean, I'm critiquing the arcade game at this point, but I always had a problem with that particular mechanic because it's so random to be able to actually pull that off.
Well, if you know how Big Fat Bad Guy moves, you can sort of time it. It's not an exact science, not for me anyway. I've played this game about 1,000,000 times, the arcade and the home version. Now, the ugly old sea woman is chucking empties, and she'll literally can appear multiple times, and she often does. And she chucks them at you, and you have to punch the bottles with your big old meaty forearms and fists to get rid of them. So once you grab all of Elsie's love hearts, you proceed to the second level. The second level is you're on like a building with multi-platforms. That you have to go around, and she's singing you a love song. Isn't that sweet?
Yeah.
And Elsie, as she sings, her musical notes descend from the heavens, and you've got to retrieve these and catch, and so you can hear the whole musical song that she does. And so you run back and forth retrieving these. Again, same play dynamic. You've got Big Fat Bad Guy on your tail, and you've got the ugly old sea woman chucking empties at you. The added difference in this is there's a basically like a teeter-totter in the corner, and so when you get down to that level, if you hit the teeter-totter, you'll fly up in the air, and your Sweet Pea is on a little float. He's holding a balloon, and under him is a little like a platform, a little thing with handles, and if you bounce up at the right time, you can grab that and get extra points, sort of float up.
Do they name Sweet Pea?
I can't remember what he was called, to be honest with you. He had a different name too. But once you get all the musical notes, you get to hear the song, and I should mention this game's got great music, doesn't it? What were you? Were you impressed with the?
I was very impressed.
You didn't expect much, did you?
No, my musical expectations for the CoCo were low, and I'm learning that this is not the case.
A lot of people are like that, and I remember loading up stuff just to hear the music, and I was like, man, this is really good, multi-voice.
Yeah.
And this game they did not skimp on the tunes. It's got tunes all throughout. So once you get past this the musical note level, you're on to the last level of the game, which is the pirate ship level. In this level, you have to Olive is sending out letters that basically spell out "help me," and you have to grab them. And every letter you get, a ladder portion appears in the middle of the screen. And once you have gotten enough of her letters, you can climb up the ladder and rescue her. On this level, there's, amongst other things, there is a moving platform that goes back and forth in between different parts of the ship. There's also the ugly old sea woman's vulture that comes around, dive bombs you occasionally. You have to deal with him. Plus, of course, ugly, big fat bad guys there as well. And once you finally complete that ladder, you win the level, and you get Elsie's love, and then the game starts over.
Now, did you mention that this was the first 64K game available?
Yes.
Okay. I want to ask you, what percentage of CoCo owners do you think were running 64K machines back then?
Well, this came out in '84, so I would say it's hard to, boy, it'd be all speculation, to be honest with you.
Yeah, sure. Would you say most of them out there were
not
running
in '84?
Okay.
I would say probably, let's say half.
Okay.
I would say if it was like '86, I'd say most people at that point.
Did you see in ads, a lot from this point going forward, 64K required?
Not a ton.
Uh-huh.
But here's the thing, and might as well come clean since you put me in a corner here, Boat. I did not buy most of my games for the CoCo.
I don't think anybody did.
The only games you could really buy here, you had two options, okay? In Hurricane, West Virginia. You could go to Radio Shack and buy your cartridge if you found one that looked good. Or you could order out of a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Around here, we had access to two magazines. One was called Rainbow, and one was called Hot CoCo. And there were others, but those are the ones I saw. And you could send away and get discs. Now, I actually did order one game out of a magazine. It was called WrestleManiac, and that I still have somewhere. But we didn't. But we were little kids too. I ended up getting into a big trading ring. The CoCo scene was real big. In the back of Rainbow, there would be pen pals, and you could hook up with people. And I managed to meet some people and got some underground newsletters sent to my house, and we'd swap discs and stuff. So that's how I got got to see a large chunk of the games I got to play. And this is one of them. There was a 0% chance. I don't know where they sold these in America, but it wasn't at Radio Shack, and it wasn't at any store I ever went to ever.
Yeah.
And I never saw anyone selling any Radio Shack stuff at any store but Radio Shack.
Right.
So it is sort of a mystery. It's weird having this is we do the Spectrum, and I don't know anything about that, but having grown up with this is one thing I do. And it wasn't like the Spectrum at all, where you could go out to the store and just get whatever you want. You couldn't get jack squat here. You couldn't find it. But in terms of your question, I don't know. Now, this game would be awesome just at what we've talked about. You got all the levels, they loop, they get harder, but they added more, much more. And so if you hit the clear button, you could access the options menu. And the options in this are really awesome. You could change. There were difficulty. I think it's 1 to 9, and you could set the difficulty for 1 or 2 players and individually set it. So you could play with your buddy who sucked, and you're awesome. And you could be playing at like 6, he could be playing at 1.
That's incredible.
I like that.
Yeah.
Of course, it did have 2-player support. It also let you start on whatever level you wanted.
Oh, wow.
So if you wanted to play the 2nd level or the 3rd level, whichever one, you could start on whichever one you wanted, which was awesome. It had a high score table. It also had a very unusual thing that you could turn on that would make all the levels invisible.
Huh.
And this is also,
that's for the master, right?
And so you play on invisible screens.
Mm-hmm.
It was real ahead of its time. I love the ability to set your skill level in between players.
Yeah.
I think that's an awesome thing.
Being able to handicap. I mean, what games did that ever? There's just that you hardly ever see that.
I think Jumpman did it. There were some games. It was something you saw more back when the games are more simple.
Okay.
But this I've done that, and it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
Yeah.
And you'd think it would be a little not too bad, but it's pretty tough. I've always loved this game, like I said, and I was when I went back to it, it played way better than I remembered. I mean, I just thought it was great, and I think amongst the ports of Popeye to the home market, this has got to be ranked well up there.
Sure.
And it was better than anyone I played. Now, I'm sure there are better ones, but I haven't played them. Like I say, if you have to get past the color, but which is not hard for us. But once you get past that, you're in business.
I mean, even though I'm not a big fan of this arcade game, this game plays just as well. I mean, I don't like it because it's hard. It's a hard game.
Did you fiddle with the difficulty settings?
I didn't, but I didn't even know that options menu existed. I've played this on all the different platforms, and it's a different beast than Donkey Kong. It's a different beast than Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
This is a different game.
One thing I liked about it is, like, I think you default at like difficulty 4. Mm-hmm. And if you move up, and of course you're artificially advancing yourself in the game. You can do the same thing by just completing it over and over. On the level you start with, Big Fat Bad Guy just kind of lumbers around. Mm-hmm. He's not very much like the arcade version.
Where
of Bluto.
He's after you right away. Yeah.
And also, the arcade version of Bluto, he'll stand still or jump up and down. Mm-hmm. But if you increase the difficulty, this guy does the exact same stuff. Mm. Now the one thing I haven't seen him do in the arcade, Bluto can chuck empties. I don't think Big Fat Bad Guy can chuck them. I've never seen him chuck them, but I haven't gotten very far on the higher levels. It's really tough.
Yeah.
Because there's many added obstacles. These smiley faces sort of bounce down off screen.
So there's stuff that's not in the arcade.
It gets real manic. When at the higher levels, but I like the fact that they just didn't. I mean, listen, games of this era, there was always a ton of attention paid to that sort of thing. Something else I always thought was funny is that when you get killed, once you get killed, your Popeye falls into the drink, and right before the screen wipes for the next man to come out, you see Popeye's little face pop up out of the water. always thought that, as a kid, I thought to myself, he's okay.
Yeah,
he's crawling back up.
Yeah,
I don't know if he did it on purpose. Guess what? I didn't find this for sale or review. I didn't find anything about this, and I think this is going to be a lot of the problem going forward. It's funny, coming off the Spectrum and the Amiga, where you've got these really incredible databases of information. CoCo, you're literally on your own. Mm. You can get the software, but when it comes to like even finding magazine scans, I found some, but they're nowhere near as intricately indexed as the Amiga ones are, or the Spectrum ones. So it's going to be a lot more digging to get the super duper details. I took forever for me to find the ad for this thing. I've been looking for it forever. But it's great. It was worth finding. But if you're going to play any CoCo game or show one to a friend to get him into it, this is the one I recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to, since this is our first episode, tell you guys that if you're enjoying the show and you'd like to support the CoCo show, you can do so. We've got a Patreon page set up. It is over at patreon.com/the CoCo show, which I'm going to bring up and show you if you're watching the YouTube video. We've got some different levels of support and ways to support the show. If you would like to support us at $1 a month, you will get access to our Discord server. And you're like, Discord server, what's that all about? Well, I'll tell you, the Discord is the greatest thing about this whole shebang, because there's people from all over the world on there. Our whole network of shows, Amigos, ARG Presents, our Sinclair, and now the CoCo show, all the fans gather there and they talk there. We talk about everything, not just gaming, but vacations and our favorite food and stuff like that. And it's the incredibly friendly group of people. Like, it's if you want a respite from all of the negativity that you see on message boards and Facebook groups, this is the place to be.
And I'd love to get some CoCo-centric people in there in the mix, because a lot of our Discord people are interested in the CoCo and the Dragon, but really don't have had such limited exposure to it. So we're all going to sort of learn. I'm going to relearn together. But the Discord's a lot of fun. Plus, it's great for like getting tips for tech and stuff. I mean, they've saved my booty more than a few times.
Absolutely. At $4 a month, you become a CoCo supporter. And what that means is that we will announce your name at the end of the show, because you are really helping keep this show going. And in December, we'll send you an official supporter magnet. These magnets are pretty cool. They look like a CoCo badge. And like I said, we send those out in December. And if you support us at $10 a month, you become part of the CoCo Show Game Selection Committee, and you actually select the games that we will talk about on every show.
We're dead. I can't wait till we get a bunch of committee members, because that that's more fun for me when they pick, because it's nice to play stuff you never heard of. That's what I like about it. And a lot of people are more knowledgeable about the games than maybe we'll be.
Absolutely. So, like I said, we love the fact that you're listening. If you do want to throw us a couple bucks a month, that would really be cool. Our goal is to make this show a weekly show, but we can only make that happen with your support. Once we get enough, either $100 a month, or if we get enough fans on the game selection committee that we need to run more shows, then we will. That's sort of what happened with Amigos. We had so many people on the game selection committee, we had to increase the amount of shows that we were doing.
It's a good way to gauge interest, and because we're sort of stepping out on a platform with the CoCo, but I've been very fortunate to have gotten a really nice stack system, and Boat's always interested in learning about new machines, so it was a natural fit to give it a shot, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
Absolutely. We do want to thank our one game selection committee member who's joined. He joined up even before our first episode. He had that much faith in the show, so thank you so much, Wing Chun Wolf. Thank you. It's been great getting to know you on the Discord.
Really nice.
Yeah. Jeet Kune Do practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, Wing Chun as well.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. We do record the show live most Fridays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. That's when we start our stream. We record all the shows on the network. You're welcome to join us on YouTube on the Amigos Retro Gaming channel. Just like Jason Plevin, Nigel Rhodes, Wishbone is here, Curtis Boyle, Picard 2005, Level Lord. Nice crowd, Angus Arthur, 10-Minute Amiga Retrocast. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. It's always a good time in the chat. And we will see you guys in about a month. We are going to play, I forgot, do you remember what it is?
I have picked a couple from the vast...
Well, I hope that you have not, because we actually have somebody that picked a game already.
We've got a game, so that's great.
Yeah, okay.
Well, then I've got one extra if we need it. What do you got?
Okay, so we are going to play... So I scroll back up through the chat. Here we go. Downland.
Oh, yes.
Downland.
Okay, I've heard of this one. And I would like to add a game to that.
Okay.
We have to have the double. We're also going to try out Draconian.
Oh, okay. Downland and Draconian.
It's the D month.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Adios.